Okay, I want to talk to you about the features of the Blingboard64's SupaDupa board. It has basic programming for all the LED functions, along with other things like macros for playback and recording, and a lot of different resets and diagnostic modes and such. So I want to go over that with you. First thing we want to do really is talk about the keyboard. So the shift lock key is going to be our magic key. So the shift lock is the only key on the keyboard normally that cannot be read separately. Usually this is a latching key, and so it would normally latch up or down and then tied to the left shift. But with this soft shift, we actually have the ability to use this as our magic key. So by magic key, I mean that we're going to press it first and then a other key combination that we might use for doing LED programming and such. So let's do a actual diagnostic of the keyboard. After you've built it, it's a good idea just to see if the whole keyboard works. And we can do that by holding down the shift lock key and then pressing the D and then turning on the power and then letting go. And we're going to see that all of the LEDs are lit up. And if we press any key, you hold it down, it's going to turn red, and let go of it's going to turn green. And so you can do this for all the keys. And the idea here is that we're going to push them all down. We want to see green on every single one of these. And when the very last key is pressed, the razzle LED, if you have one, will turn green. So at this point, we know that this keyboard is good. Okay, so let's talk about LED programming. So let's turn the power on, and the shift lock key works as a normal shift lock key. So if you press it and release it, it'll be red, or a color that you program to be under it. And so we want to make sure that when we're programming something, it has to be in the non-shifted position, so it cannot be lit up. So if we want to change like the LED pattern, we're going to hold the shift lock key and the 1, and then we use the plus and minus to go through the pattern. So we do plus is a solid pattern. So that's basically just all the same color. Hit it again. This is the rainbow pattern, and we do it again. This one's going to take a little bit of time. It's called breathe, and then it'll actually pulsate the LEDs up and down. And we can change the speed of this animation here. I'll show you in a second of how we do that. So let's go to the next one, which is a wave, and then we have fire, and then we have a matrix rain, and then we've got a tunnel, and then this is for my friend AJ. This is Kit from Knight Rider, and this is for the Outrun game, and this is a radar scope, and we'll show you in a bit when it makes a lot more sense when it's going fast. And this one's for my friend Yuri. This is a tape loader. Apparently in Europe, when you were loading tape, you saw this a lot. So I've never seen it because I'm from the US and we had disk drives. So let's go back to our solid pattern, and we'll do now a shift lock 2, which is the brightness control, and then we can use the plus and minus to control the brightness. So you can see, now when we reach the end, see it flash red like this, it lets you know this is the very last setting. So this is the brightest it will get, and it'll flash when there's a minimum or maximum. So we'll go down to the minimum here, and you can see the same thing. So there's 16 levels of brightness that we can control through here, and it lets you know when you've gotten to the max brightness. So the next one is shift lock 3, and that controls the animation speed. So let's go to a pattern where there is an actual animation. There's a good one, and we'll do shift lock 3 and then plus, and you can see it starts, that's the maximum obviously, but you can see how fast this will go. And now we can turn it down. Let's try a different pattern. So this is a breathe, so let's go turn that up to be full, and now you can see what it does. Makes a little more sense this way. Okay, we'll turn that down. We'll go to the next pattern. So this is the wave pattern. We'll turn that up, see how fast this will go. So it gives you an idea. And then we'll go to the next pattern, which is fire, which is a bit much for the fire. So that looks better. And then we'll go to this pattern here, which is the matrix. So that's plenty fast enough for that one. and then we'll go to the tunnel. The tunnel makes way more sense slower. You wouldn't want to go this fast because it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. But this looks better. Okay, we'll go to the next pattern, which is Knight Rider. So obviously this speed is way too fast. So we'll turn this down to something that would make AJ happy. So we'll go to the next one. This is the outrun pattern. And you can see how that looks when it's going faster. And the next pattern is going to be, this is my radar scope. So basically it's like old school radar. And then we go to the next one. This must be the turbo tape loader. So it's going pretty fast. Okay, so that's all the LED controls for the various patterns and such. Let's go back here and let's turn off this right now. So the next thing we're going to look at is the key action LED programming. So key action is something that happens when you press a key. So right now it's off, which is the default. So if we do shift lock 4 and we do a plus, you can see it briefly blinked, and if you tap it, it's going to give you what we call flicker. So this is what it'll do. And we'll do the next one, which is solid. So as long as you're holding the key, it stays lit up. And the next one is a fade. So every time you hit a key, it'll fade. And then you can literally just do like this. You can see the result. And back to shift lock 4, another plus. And this is kind of an explosion around your finger. And next is it's a different type of explosion. You can see. And the last one is a rainbow explosion. So you can see, you can do dueling ones. So we do opposite end of the keyboard. So the next one is shift lock 5, which plus is actually the brightness. So we actually have it turned up to maximum already, but we can turn the key action brightness down to be very dim if you wanted to. In fact, we'll turn this to a different pattern here. We'll make this the flicker. You can just barely see the flicker now at this brightness. Okay, so that's the LED programming. And so we're on now to the macro. So the Blingboard64 SupaDupa board is a dual core 240 megahertz CPU setup using about 7% of the code space, and one CPU is actually off. So that tells you how overkill this is for this project. We can do things like literally play Doom from the keyboard, broadcast it over the 64's video. So it's something I'm working on actually right now. So recording and playing macros, it's kind of important, I think. It's kind of a modern thing that some of the modern keyboards have, and that I really like this feature. So to play back a macro, you're going to press the shift lock, left shift, and then the entire top row here of 1 through 9 and 0 is a slot for a macro. And so when you shift lock shift and then 1, it's going to play the macro within slot 1 or slot 0, depending on which, whatever you push. And if there's a macro actually there. And while it's playing the macro, the shift lock light will light up green. So you can see that we don't have any macros programmed in here because it would be green otherwise. So to record a macro, you can do shift lock Commodore, and let's say we do 1, and notice that the shift lock light's lit up red, so it's recording mode. So if I were to type in a macro, let's say like a simple basic program, 10, do a question mark for print, HELLO, and then we're going to do a return, and then we do 20, go to 10, return, and I press and hold the shift lock and the LED goes out. That's recorded the macro now. So now if I were to do shift lock shift and then 1, you can see the LED is green briefly because during this time it's typing it out on the screen. So on your monitor in front of you, you're going to see exactly what you had typed in for the macro that you recorded. And like I said, you can do 1 through 9 and 0, so there's 10 macro slots total. And you can do anything you want, literally. It's limited to 256 characters for each one of the macros in this keyboard programming mode. And we'll talk about in another video about the USB and the Wi-Fi programming, which actually extends that out quite a bit. So there's some other built-in macros. There's a system macro. I only have one macro in here right now, and it's the undo. So if you were to say new on this program and you hit Shift Lock Control 1, and you can see it's blue, it'll actually type to the screen the macro that I set up internally to do an undo, courtesy of David of our group. And it was just kind of neat. So now that I've done that, I can just say list, actually, list, and I can see the programs back that we just typed in for the macro. So it's pretty nifty that we can do that. If you have suggestions about internal macros, I have 10 slots again. I'm using one. So if you want to have it, you know, like Shift Control 2 does, you know, load comma 8, comma 1 or whatever, we can, you know, internally program it, and that's a permanent macro that stays built in. And you've got the 10 that you can use yourself, however you want to use them. And so I think the other option here that you probably want to know is the restore. So to back to factory defaults. So if you power off and you hold the shift lock and the F1 key and you power on, it's going to light up the F1 key and you can let go of it and it's reset everything back to factory defaults. So that's a thing that you're probably going to want to do if you get like too many macros or macros that are confusing. And you can erase a macro simply by starting it, and then ending it without touching anything else. That'll actually clear the macro as well. But it's a lot quicker just to, you know, reset everything, including your display for your patterns and such, and your key states. So the other option we have that we'll talk about in depth in another video is enabling the Wi-Fi mode. So this does have Wi-Fi, and you can control the entire keyboard through your cell phone or your PC or Linux or Mac, whatever you would like to use. So to get into Wi-Fi mode, to enable it, you'd hold down the shift lock and then W, and you just wait for about 4 seconds or so, and now it flashes yellow at you, and it lets you know that it's in Wi-Fi mode. Wi-Fi is off normally. There's no reason to have it on because you can just burn up power. You know, there's excessive power use. It doesn't use much, but you know, it's more than none. So I just leave it off. So once that's enabled, then you can go over to your device and enable the Wi-Fi directly and access all the functions of the keyboard, plus a lot more from that as well. Like I said, there's another video coming for that. It'll explain each one of the steps of how to do the programming and firmware upgrades and all that, so you can do everything from it. So that's a quick run through of the you know, the macros that we've got that are available. There's one more macro here I wanted to talk about real quick, and it's the information macro. Again, it's another thing I can do internally. So if you do Shift Lock I and then 1, you'll notice it's cyan for this. It's actually printing right now all of the LED settings to your monitor, so to your 64 screen, so you can see exactly how every single setting is set for the entire system. And so when it's done, it shuts off. And so that gives you a nice handy bit of information, and I can put other information in there as well. Like I measure the voltage of the computer even and stuff, so I'll probably add some features like that. Like I said, there's a ton of space and code space wise. If you guys have suggestions for, you know, features, I'm all ears for it. Doing these patterns is very simple. It takes just a few minutes literally to add a pattern, because I've got a really nice code base set up for routines for doing things, including sinus tables and all kinds of things like that. So adding a pattern is pretty easy to do. Just, you know, basically describe your pattern you'd like to see, and I can probably add it pretty quickly. So that's a rundown of this. Look for the next video. It talks about the Wi-Fi and USB support.